Want to let folks know that the best way to keep up with everything happening on the In the Money Media Network is our In the Money Players newsletter. Going to be adding some fun bells and whistles to this too. Simply go to inthemoneypodcast.com, click on the newsletter tab, or just put in inthemoneypodcast.com/email. It'll take you to the screen you see there. Pop on your email, and you'll get every week a list of all the shows we're putting out, as well as special messages from me, offers, other little tidbits of information. Probably a good thing to do in the run-up to the Breeders' Cup. You can see a sample there, too, at inthemoneypodcast.com/email. The In the Money Players newsletter. Check it out today. Hello and welcome to a special video version of the In the Money Players podcast. Peter Thomas Fornatal, happy to be back with you. As you can see, we are in the world famous Brooklyn bunker, racing memorabilia, and lots of vinyl behind me. Excited for today's show. We've got a three-parter. Folks may look at today's lineup and say, hey, where's Keeneland? We actually did a separate audio show with Nick Manella, the winner of last year's Keeneland Fall Challenge. You can find that in the feeds, in themoneypodcast.com, wherever you access our stuff. Today, all about three other jurisdictions. We're going to start off talking about Belmont Park with Brian Arrigoni. Then we are going to bring Benny Southstreet back to talk about the Golden Hour Late Pick 4. We're going to wrap up with usual guest and In the Money Woodbine expert Drew Coatney talking Woodbine. But first up, we're going to bring him in right away. You've heard him on these airwaves over the summer talking about his home track of Canterbury Park, but I know he's a devoted New York player as well. Brian Arrigoni, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, and it looks like a great card on Saturday. Super excited to dive into this Late Pick 5.
There's a lot going on. We got 4 Breeders' Cup win-and-you're-in races, an additional stake, more win-and-you're-in action on Sunday. I agree. This Late Pick 5 is going to be a lot of fun, and we start things off in race number 7. We've got 2-year-old maidens going a mile and a 16th on the turf. I'm going to start off because my opinion isn't very exciting. I like number 4, Hardison. This one just has the look of a Mott runner that's going to improve. Was not bet first out. And you see this a lot with patient trainers where when you watch the tape, you can almost see the horse figuring out what the job of racing is as they start running on through the lane. These types tend to improve, but let me tell you, I'm not particularly interested in standing alone in this field of 12 with live-looking AEs as well with only one runner. I'm hoping you have something a little bit more creative for us here, Brian.
I don't, actually. This first leg is going to be a key for me because I'm going to spread out, try and beat the favorite in here. I think this is a challenging race. You've got many well-bred 2-year-olds going to try something for the first time. Those with experience, I wasn't all that impressed by, so I'm going to spread out in this race, probably go about 6 deep between 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8 for me. No strong opinions. I think this is a challenging race, but I think it's a race that you could potentially find a long shot to kick off that pick 5.
If I forced you, if I held your feet to the fire and made you give a top pick, could you do it, or is it really just equal for you 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8?
Not real strong opinions. About 50% of my handle does go to pick 5, so I don't really dive into the individual races. But if I had to, I'd probably take a look at the other Christophe Clement horse, number 3, Stand With Mo. It's a 2-year-old by Uncle Mo. Dylan Davis gets the call. Clement's other horse with Joel Rosario is bound to take the majority of the wagering. However, the 3 is a half to some very nice horses that have made a ton of money, including Sea Queen, who Clement also trained back in 2014 and made over $500,000 in only 9 races.
Some good notes there. And with Clement, you know you're getting somebody who can have him ready first out. Let's move on to grade 1 action in the Flower Bowl. Goes as race number 8, a mile and a quarter on the inner turf. I'm going to let you kick this one off, Brian. How are we going to get through this leg?
Nothing real creative. I'm not that excited with Canberra Park, so at 5-2, that one won't be on my ticket. I think My Sister Nat is certainly the one to beat. I know Civil Union comes back in this spot as well. And if you watch the gallop out, My Sister Nat was never going by, but then you kind of dive into the race within the race. For 6 furlongs, They went almost 120. Everyone's complaining about the riders in New York going too slow. I mean, that's one of the prime races right there. 53, 120. My sister Nat just had way too much work to do. I think the race goes through her, but I certainly respect Civil Union, along with maybe an outside shot with Bo Bell, who galloped out very nicely and could be the controlling pace setter in that race.
My top pick in here is the 4 La Signore. I think this is one of those races where you go back and you let the past performances tell a story. Clearly, early in her career, she was very keen in her races, and Connections understandably made the decision to stop trying to stretch her out. But I feel like she's been a different mare this year, having matured, looking a lot more settled early on. Just looking at the form of these recent races and the figures, if she can get the 10 furlongs, I think she's got a valid threat to win it all. And I think she could be all of that 8 or 10 to 1. I definitely respect the runners you listed there, but La Signore is going to be one that I'm not just using, but pressing in the Grade 1 Flower Bowl. Do you see her at all, or do you have questions about that distance?
Absolutely. She's the outside runner in here that hasn't faced many of these in the past and comes in from Churchill and the likes of some other tracks that are very good. You gotta love the value. 8 to 1 in the morning line could potentially drift up. I think those Chad Brown runners are going to take a lot of action at the windows as well. So should get value on your 4.
I think that's probably right. Civil Union, I'll just underline as well as one that's going to be all over my tickets. I'm very impressed with the recent form, and I like that she's been able to do it with a variety of running styles. You made a great point about my sister Nat as well. I'm really looking forward to that race. Let's move on for now, though, to race number 9. A little bit of a shame seeing the Jockey Club Gold Cup reduced to a 5-horse field, given the historic significance of this race. I think for many, this race comes down to a single question. Longtime listeners and viewers will know where I stand with Tacitus. But Brian, do you trust him in this spot? Will he be on your tickets?
Absolutely not, and I don't trust him very often. In fact, he's a horse that I consistently like to play against. Tacitus in the same role for me as a horse named Tax. I like to play against horses like this. Now, I do understand Tacitus is the ultimate class of the field, but was chasing Global Campaign, never really going by, kind of one paced in here. And I think this is where the pick 5, if it's going to pay anything, you're going to have to try and beat Tacitus. If Tacitus wins, so be it. Maybe on a ticket I'll use Tacitus, but the 2 that I'm really going to focus on are both the 1 and the 5. I think Happy Saver is a horse who's continuing to get better, certainly gets tested for class in here, but the 3-year-old has really done everything that Todd Pletcher has asked, and who knows, with a win here, maybe they think about turning around in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I mean, the horse has done everything that they've asked of him, could potentially be 4 for 4, has to overcome the rail draw, but will appreciate the extra distance. And then Mike Stidham's Mystic Guide, J.R. Velasquez, and Stidham in here, a 3-year-old, taking on older for the first time, but another who's got tactical speed, can press, and if they do find the lead, Tacitus could just hang around like he's proven to do in the past, but Tacitus is certainly the one to beat in this spot.
I can't disagree with any of what you said about Tacitus, and certainly your plan in general of trying to play against him has worked out better than mine of being on him, though in only certain circumstances. I'm of the belief that this is a horse that needs all the 1.25 miles. And I just don't think, as impressive as Happy Saver has been, as good as Mystic Guide has been, these 3-year-olds on their best days, I don't think they're in as good as form as Global Campaign was when he beat Tacitus. I think Tacitus is one paced. I mean, that is no doubt the case. He's not going to quicken and run down a really good horse with a pace advantage. That could happen here with Happy Saver, but I still feel like on the body of work, on the fact that I think in many ways this Grade 1 probably the goal for Mott in this campaign with Tacitus, I've got to go with him. I will have a small saver with Happy Saver, but you make good points, but I'm sticking with Tacitus based on the 10 furlongs, the idea of Bill Mott with a target, and then the old fastest, classiest horse angle. We'll see how it works out. I've obviously been stuffed into a locker many times by opponents of Tacitus, but I'm hoping you can get that elusive Grade 1 victory in this year's Jockey Club Gold Cup. Let's talk about the Sands Point. This is a fun stakes race as well. We've got 3-year-old fillies going a mile in this Grade 2 spot on the Belmont turf. And I'll kick it back to you. Who's your top selection in here? How are you looking to approach this race in terms of the pick 5?
Well, I'm a big advocate of playing 2 tickets, so I always try and play 2 tickets. One of my singles, and probably my largest ticket, is going to be singled in this spot. Tamahir, the French bred. I don't single these horses very often. In fact, there's so many unknowns. 2 for 6. The earnings only $50,000, but I was able to go on XBTV, pull up a workout where she worked out incredibly well. I thought I was watching newspaper record with this one because she was a little bit headstrong, which is certainly a concern. But she was working out against a fellow Chad Brown horse, Viadera, who's a certainly classy filly that he has 5 for 12 with earnings over 200,000. Just won the Noble Damsel Grade 3 at Belmont, and I thought Tamahera did everything they asked for her. Galloped out incredibly well. At first, asking for Chad Brown, it's something that I usually don't do. However, I'm going to single in this spot, and I think a lot of people are going to try and spread out in this race. So that will be one of my strongest singles on the card.
I'm with you on Tamahera. I think this is a really interesting stranger. I like the fact that if you dig up the French tape too, this one has been ridden forwardly. And that rankness in the workout, I mean, that I think part of that has to do with the way Chad trains and just really trying to get them into his program and going around there together and never going off the bridle. I just think it's a sign that this one might have a little bit of early speed that could serve her really well in this spot. In my expert picks over on Twin Spires, I actually put Tamahera second, but really a co-top choice. The other one I'm interested in is number 5, Miss J. McKay. I thought this one was pretty interesting on the stretch out, and that 6.5 at Kentucky Downs does probably require just as much stamina as this mile on turf. Fits on Figures, another who I thought would get a good forward trip with the top pilot attracted. I could see some combinations where I might save with the morning line favorite Selflessly, but this one was mostly about Tamahera and Miss J. McKay for me. Let's move on to our nightcap. We've got 2-year-old maiden New York breds going 6 furlongs on the inner turf. Brian, how are we going to get paid?
I mean, I think it's relatively formful with the middle races. Races 8, 9, and 10 appear to be formful. Where I'm going to try and make it or break it for me is the maiden races. You've got the boys going in race number 7. You've got the fillies going in race number 11. So I'm going to stretch out in the 2-year-old races, both at the front end and the back end. 6 furlongs. You've got some talented first-time starters going against some horses with experience that haven't necessarily shown all that much. Herald Angel is a play against for me. I didn't see anything that really stood out in terms of breeding in this race. I thought many of them were actually very average, running for a generous purse of over 50,000 here at Belmont. So this is a race I would recommend spreading as far as your wallet and your wagering allows you to do, because I have no real strong opinions. I'm probably going to go 6, 7, maybe even 8 deep in here. I've got 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 in this race. No strong opinions, but I'm going to go light in races 8, 9, and 10. Only 3 deep in races 8, 3 deep in races 9 with that single. So hopefully I can afford to catch a price here in the last leg.
That's a totally valid approach, and I'm glad we're talking about this. I mean, too often we get roped in. You know this from your TV work. You can get roped into being complete. These are my 3 selections, and racing isn't like that. If you want to win, you've got to be more malleable and bring in different approaches. I liked some of, no surprise, given that your approach to this race. I liked a bunch of the same ones as you. I share your trepidation about the favorite. I went with number 11, Violent I Am, on top. I just liked the fact that this one made a move into what looked to be a fast pace on the dirt last time and is bred to handle the grass. I thought would get a good trip in here. And then pedigree-wise, the 2 notes I had were the 7, Promised Road. I just like the fact that we have a New York bred by Star Stallion, Elusive Quality, and a Dam who's been very productive too, dropping 5 winners from 7 starters. And then this one, I swear it's not just a hunch play because I'm among the world's biggest Jaws fans, but I was interested in number 10, Amity Island. Great name, being by Brody's cause. But just looking at the pedigree of this one, I felt like one you had to include. I'm going to mostly try to get out 11, 7, 10 in the nightcap at Belmont. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. We're going to have you back on soon. I know you follow New York and California throughout the year pretty much, right?
Absolutely. Keeneland, love Keeneland, New York, California, all the big name tracks where there's those big handles. You can find some low takeout pick 5s. That's where you'll find me in my wagering.
Good stuff, Brian. We'll be talking soon.
Thank you very much.
Today's show is brought to you in part by our friends at Stable Duel. A new breed of gaming is here. Stable Duel combines traditional horse playing with elements of fantasy sports, fixed odds wagering, and delivers it in an exciting package. Great way to get action all day for a fixed cost. And I'm a big fan. Big games this weekend, including racing from Keeneland and Santa Anita. Check it out. You can read more about it at StableDuel.com. But what you really want to do is download the Stable Duel app and get yourself started playing today. And now I'd like to welcome to the podcast airwaves. We did a special show on the Golden Hour Pick 4 and Double last week. He's here now with video to be part of our late week video show. He is from TripNotePros.com, Benny Southstreet. Benny, what's up, my man?
Good morning, Pete. How are you?
Things are good. I think we did an admirable job. We gave it a couple of winners last week. I don't think we can claim it or anything. Hopefully this week we can connect the dots a bit on this Golden Hour Pick 4. I know this is a bet you're a big fan of.
Love it. Love pick fours. Love these two tracks. So got some good notes today. Hopefully we can come through with it. If we get one decent price in here, I think it'll be worth some money.
Let's make our little announcement, too, about what you plan on doing for the Trip Note Pros notes and the InTheMoneyPodcast.com website. When are you looking to start putting some Golden Hour notes up in that format?
As soon as we hang up. We've got everything prepped and ready to go. So we're going to have the Golden Hour Pick 4 trip notes up for free on your site. There'll be a link on there to click and get a couple of races that are left over from those notes, but for the most part, we'll be providing everything to you gratis.
Oh, we love to hear that. And yeah, and then obviously it'll be very clear how you can go and get some more from what's up on the site. So great. Yeah. Be on the lookout for that. I'll support that on Twitter as well, so folks will be able to easily find it. Let's talk about this week's races, shall we? Things start off at Santa Anita. Yes, indeed. It's Santa Anita for leg A of this pick 4. It starts at 4:44, so that's local time. So 7:44 Eastern on Saturday. We've got the California Distaff, $100,000 in the pot, going 5.5 on the turf for fillies and mares. And I'm boring in here, so I'm going to use that as the excuse to go first. I was having a lot of trouble seeing past the favored number 4, Just Grazed Me, who had what I thought was a figure in class advantage over this group, and I thought would get an okay trip. Do you have anything more clever for us, or is it as simple as bet the 4 and move on?
Well, I think Just Grazed Me is logical, but the more I kind of, I'm always trying to beat the favorite, right? So that's the goal. I suppose if you had anything to knock, you could say that she's almost 6 now, and she's only had 13 starts, and she's had this break in her pattern, which is consistent. It's every few months now. This time she'll be going on several, and she hasn't even been at Santa Anita. She's been working out at Los Al, which is okay. So is the other D'Amato runner, but you've got 2 D'Amato runners in here. If she's that live, why have the other one in there was kind of my thinking. And it is a stake. Althea Gibson's 2 for 2 on the surface as well, the other D'Amato. So every once in a while you get these runners where they just fall in love with a certain trip. And I think Althea could be that one. She's 2 for 2 going 5/8 on turf. So she would be an include for me as well. If Just Graze Me's ready, she's the likely winner. But, this is they're both Nick Alexander's horses. Why waste one if the other one's live was kind of my thinking. So I do think she has a knock against her in that respect. And then we've got a couple really strong notes on the 2 outside horses, Fantasy Heat and Gypsy Blue. Fantasy Heat, if you watch that race carefully in the stretch, this jock actually drops the reins for quite a while. And she only got beat a half length, and she's a pro on this surface as well. Sprinting, she's 3-3-1 out of 9 starts. She's made close to 200 grand, and she's got to be an include for me, as is the other Glatt. Interesting that you have 2 trainers in here that cover 4 of the 6 runners, and they're always good on this surface. So Fantasy Heat's going to be an include for me as well. I'm going to try and beat the favorite, Just Graze Me. I will likely press this one a little bit harder because, as you stated, I think she is the most likely winner. But, yeah, I've got a couple good notes on these others. And Gypsy Blue as well. It doesn't show up in the PPs, similar to Fantasy Heat's treble not showing in the PPs. This one lost a couple lengths at the start and had to rally much too early and kind of flattened late. And that was a respectable effort going 5/8 at Del Mar. So the outside four for me are all uses. And if you beat Just Graze Me, it could start your way onto a nice payoff because I do think she's the most logical single in the sequence.
All right. Well, our mutual friend, Frank Scottoni likes to say, why enter two when one would do? Sometimes I do give extra, a little less worried about that, I should say, in stakes races where the minor placing can mean so much. I do feel like there's a little bit more reason for connections to enter two in a spot like that, especially when you have to beat so few runners to get that coveted black type. But I take your point against. We'll be essentially going head-to-head there. It sounds like you'll survive with Just Graze Me, but your main plan will be to go against. I'm going to be very boring and just single and move on. Let's move on to leg B. We head up to Golden Gate. We've got 12.5 claimers going a mile on the synthetic surface. This is for ones that have never won 2 races. Race scheduled to go at 8 o'clock Eastern up at Golden Gate. I'm going to let you kick this one off. What did you like in here?
Well, I watched the common race for a few of these runners, that September 9th race going a mile over the synthetic, and there were 7 horses within a couple lengths of that score. So that was a knock to me. There were a couple that did have some trouble. One of those has been claimed by Wong, and he's typically gold in this situation. So I have to include the 6. The 9, I've got a knock on the 9, and that being D'Amato is just absolutely gold when he stretches on turf, and they shipped this one up here. So, to ship up and then drop is not a vote of confidence for me. Foster Boy does seem like the legit speed, but if he caves, which I think he very well might, I think there are some others that can win. I'm looking at the 2 droppers, those being the 2 final, and the 4 I Will Yeah. I think they finally find their friends. They're both handled by capable conditioners. They've got capable riders, and I'm going to look for one of those to upset. So those would be the likely biggest presses for me, along with the 6 maybe as a B. The 9 can win, but like I said, D'Amato, he's so good taking these turf horses and stretching them out. Why didn't he do that at Santa Anita? To send up to up north was a knock for me. So to me, it's 2, 4, and 6.
We're reading from the same playbook here as regards to number 2, final, figures that fit, dropping. And I felt like, and I was going to ask you about this, but there might be some legit trip excuses in the last 2 with taking the bump last time. And I thought that was a middle move into a fast for the level pace 2 back. I'm definitely going to be pressing up final in this spot. And I like your cases you make on your other uses as well. So we'll be in the same boat as far as this 8th race at Golden Gate goes. Let's move on to race number 9. We head back to Santa Anita for this leg C in our golden hour pick 4. This is also leg A of the golden hour double. We're headed to the bottom. We've got $20,000 maiden claimers. We're dealing with 3 and up, and we're going 6 furlongs. I'm going to kick this one back to you, Benny. How are we going to keep this thing alive?
Well, the 3 would normally be an obvious use, but Sadler wins all the time dropping, but with a different owner that has a boatload of money. I don't know anything about this owner, the one that owns Full Draw, but when Hronis drops, it's really of no concern because when God needs a loan, he calls Hronis, right? So this one is a little bit different in that I'm not familiar with that owner, so the drop could be a little scary. just to this one's outside, there is some speed. You've got a dropper, or rather a shipper from Los Al that's coming out of those fast run races where they have like 0 run up and they just blast off all the way around the track. So I think the 4 could put the 3 in a box early, as well as that first timer that's trained by Luis Mendez, who's very good with his gate speed and first time starter. So I think the 3 is going to have to contend with being down inside there and might have some trouble getting out. I'm going to be leaning towards another speed that might draw a good trip. I don't think this one needs the lead, but is just naturally fast, and that's Prince Ricky. Gets the bug up and is, I think, the best of the speed. And then I also like Time to Testify. Maldonado is typically a ride right out of the gate kind of jockey, and they had a plan with this one. On tape, he clearly gathers this one in. He's comfortable lagging, makes a nice middle move, and then just flattens, probably because he wasn't fit. Second time off the layoff. He's logical to me. I do think there's some speed in here. And I'm going to be pulling hard, as well as using the 12 Lucky Ryan 7, who we have a nice trouble line on. This one broke poor at the start, took a strong bump, checked around horses and pulled up, going around a horse at the top of the stretch. And the jockey's leg almost came out of the irons last time. So the 12 has plenty of excuses, gets a double drop, a bug, and blinkers, is drawn well to the outside, and that's a use for me. I'd love to celebrate with this rider's first win ever at Santa Anita.
That's always they're pretty good at the ritual, the first win ritual out there at Santa Anita. We'll have to get a report from the grounds should those events happen. Yes, for me, I was with you about not trusting full draw despite how obvious the runner is. I also just didn't like that this was one that didn't break well in both dirt starts. And I felt like there's a lot of reasons this one could end up in a jackpot, and I didn't want to trust. One that you mentioned as a pace factor, I liked for all the marbles here, that being number 5, Raise the Stakes. The trainer angle is obvious, and this is a good female family with 8 winners from 9 starters. I was going to try to press Raise the Stakes and see if we couldn't get a win here in this 9th race at Santa Anita. Just to clarify, were you going to use Raise the Stakes, or were you just seeing as limited to a pace factor?
Well, because I like the 6 who's drawn outside, the speed that's drawn to the inside of that one, I was going to toss. So it wouldn't surprise me if this horse won. Mendez he's been on a tear in these baby races at Del Mar, and he kind of got my radar a few years back and has done exceptionally well. But because he'll have to deal with outside pressure, he was going to be a pass for me.
Fair enough. We'll go head-to-head in that one. I was thinking lucky draw maybe on some backups just based on the obviousness, but I think your strategy probably better from a pure equity point of view. We move on to leg D of the pick 4, leg B of the Golden Hour double. We are back up north at Golden Gate. We stay in the maiden 20 ranks for this one. Benny, how are we going to get paid?
Well, I've got some knocks on the 1. So the 1's going to be a total fade for me. Wouldn't surprise me if he won, but I do have some knocks against. These Calbred races are typically a lateral move when you drop into these open 20s, even though this one has headed up north. You know, he's a dead cold stretch runner and really doesn't gain any ground in the stretch. The thing that gets me is he's got a steady work pattern since he raced in August with, you know, a really nice tab, 7-7, 8-8, 7 days. It's nice and steady, but 2 of those works are really nice over the dirt. Why not give him a chance over dirt prior to spending the money and shipping him up north? So for me, I'm going to fade him. He's going to be coming from the clouds anyway. I do think the 3 is very interesting. His race as a 2-year-old was against some really, really salty grass horses. Obviously, he's had some problems since, but fighting CB was a grade 3 winner next out. And the I believe it was the With Anticipation Stakes, if I'm not mistaken. And Billy Blatz almost came out of this race to beat Structor in the Breeders' Cup. So that's a very live turf race. It's probably the surface that this one was looking at all along. Yes, he did drop, but I watched him on tape, and this thing was running fine, showing good speed at the rail. When he kind of just got outquicked a little bit to the half, and he suffered a bad shuffle and the rider just wrapped up on him. So this is probably his game anyway, going long on green stuff. He takes blinkers off. He wasn't bet like he was well met. He was 5-1 morning line, which to me is a positive sign. It means they were going to try today. So I'm looking at him. I think he's going to get a good stalking trip from the inside towards from the outside two that I think are going to blast off, those being US Danger and Bigfoot City. So the 3 is an A for me. And then I've also got a really nice note on the 6. To get wind up when he got cut off and lost all of his momentum last time. He looks like he's moving forward. He's coming out of a common race with, I believe, Exeter. And Exeter used to handle this one, but I think Infatuate would have gone by this one had he not been troubled. So to me, he's on the uptick and he's worth a use. And then the 7 was interesting for me, except the one thing, he had a perfect work tab. I mean, it was really nice. 7, 7, 7, 7, 9, 6, 6, 7, 8, 6. Perfectly, this horse has got to be dead fit. And then he throws in a 21-day gap and then races. I'm not buying that. I think that's a fishy line. The horse is 20-1. Ellen Jackson's more than capable with winning first time out. I haven't checked the first time out route stats, but the ROI is all you need to know on the first stat with Ellen Jackson, and that work tab was good up until that last one. So the 7 would be a B for me, but I do like the 3 and the 6 in the slot.
There's some good stuff there when you're looking at the work tab on the 7. So when you were reading out those numbers, that was the spacing of how many days between the workouts, to clarify. And then you're saying you're I'm trying to think of how to say this so we don't get sued, but you're saying that you believe perhaps that somehow a workout was missed somewhere, and this one might be fitter than it appears heading into the race. Am I saying that? I just
find it exactly. So I mean, yes, the clockers can miss workouts from time to time, but this horse had 11 straight works of perfect spacing, 11 works in a row. That's typically not normal. Something would happen within those days usually, and that didn't happen. But then he suddenly has 21 days where there are no works. So this horse is either going to run last because he really needs the race, or he might fire a big shot. So I'm leaning towards the latter, and she's more than capable winning first time out. I've seen Ellen win a ton of first-time races, all at big numbers. Matter of fact, last year one of them was at the NHC. The horse was like 40-1, and it broke my heart because I was going to take it and I didn't.
Wouldn't be a horse player without one of those type of
bad beat,
one that got away / bad beat complaints. I'm with you on try. I mean, the favorite. There's another favorite that's obvious. I like this one less than the last one. I would probably want as a backup just on Master of the Obvious, dropping in figures type stuff. I don't want to be alive having caught something here and then lose to this obvious horse. So I'll have some tickets that are alive to the one. But US Danger, who you mentioned, and this is an angle you mentioned earlier too, the Jonathan Wong off the claim. This is another one I feel like I need to have on the tickets. 8-1 on the morning line should be decent value, I would think, in the picks. And I just feel we've seen in the past with these, this one has races that fit with these, and these Wong runners can improve any amount. Well, it didn't sound like you were ultimately going to have US Danger on your tickets, though.
No, and the reason why I didn't, this one, you make perfect sense with this one, but I think I know this horse pretty well, and I don't think he's very rateable. He's kind of keyed up, and he's going long on grass today, which I love, but the keyed up types, I think he's going to have a hard time reining this one in, and he's going to have someone flanking him on the outside. It does seem like he's going to clear pretty easily, but this is a fast horse. And even though the pedigree suggests no issue, I just think he's kind of a head case, to be honest with you. So, love where your head's at with the speed and the trainer switch, but I just think he's a little keen for me.
All right, well, we'll see how it all works out on Saturday. Of course, you can play the Golden Hour double, and pick 4, not just Saturday, but any day that Santa Anita and Golden Gate are running. Check out more from Benny over both at inthemoneypodcast.com and, of course, tripnotepros.com as well. Thank you very much, my man. We'll have you back on soon. Brian and I were just talking about the pick 5 at Belmont, but I want to let you know that the late pick 4 all weekend at Belmont comes with Winsurance. If you play on twinspires.com, this is a really cool offer where you can get 25% of your pick 4 bet credited back to you up to $50. So fantastic de facto rebate going to be happening all weekend long at TwinSpires. Very easy to claim. You go to twinspires.com, click the offers tab. It'll take you to the page you're seeing on screen there, and then you click there to claim it and get more information. You can also access this through the TwinSpires app. Play it this weekend with us. Pick 4 Winsurance from Belmont Park. And to button things up on this edition of the In the Money Players podcast video edition, we have our Woodbine expert. He posts his picks Saturdays and Sundays for the late pick 4 typically, but sometimes for other races, over on inthemoneypodcast.com. Gave out a nice cold number last week. Even managed to beat me in a head-to-head. Could have beaten me in 2, but he wimped out. I'm talking about, of course, Drew Coatney. Drew, how are you today?
Hey, Pete. Don't worry, though. Greats do fall sometime. Tom Brady being the prime example.
I'm not sure who's who in that analogy, but we'll leave it alone. The good news is I understand that you were betting enthusiastically with your picks. You must have had a nice weekend.
I did. I had some friends. I've had some friends follow me into the pools as well, and I got excited calls on Sunday. Looking for what's the next action. So opinions were not strong on Sunday, and we went 0 for 4. So I did the right choice. And sometimes the best decision is to keep your money in your pocket.
That's right. You were firing on Saturday when you had 4 on-top winners, essentially, with your most logical picks over at inthemoneypodcast.com. We'll see how we do here. This Saturday, pick 4 kicks off with race number 7 at Woodbine. Goes at 4:37 Eastern. 2-year-old stakes action, 1 mile and a 16th on the turf with $250,000 in the pot for the Cup and Saucer Stakes. I thought this was a real Drew Coatney kind of race in that I thought there were some good cases to make for several long shots. I'm going to let you start, and we'll see if I'm right.
Yeah, it is. It really is the more I dived into it. Let's start with the favorite real quick. I think this is an easy stand against favorite who got quite the pace setup, broke slow, got the rail ride, kind of sucked up that way, and just cleared well. So, yeah, but I just wasn't convinced. I don't know how that's going to like the longer distance. Then we go out to the outside of Dragon's Brew. Again, I think that this one had the better of the trips compared to some of the others in here, especially my second choice, which would be the number 8, 357. I do have a trip note that he did stalk an easy pace, went too wide, took over easily, but it keeps progressing. Could have an upside. And sorry for the chime. It is time to then give out the number 1 pick. Is number 6 Download 12-1. Almost fell over coming out of the gate for 2 or 3 times and trailed Gretzky the Great and Ready to Repeat in the Grade 1 Summer. So bounced out to 4 paths, as was the only one making up ground late. So definitely against the pace flow. Had a little bit of a trip, and I think this bunch here is a lot softer than Gretzky the Great and Ready to Repeat. I think could make one more step forward for the top jockey out there with Stein getting aboard. I think this one is mine. So 12-1, number 6, Download.
Download was in my 2 as well. Super interesting. Exiting the fastest race, as you pointed out, with a little trip excuse there, maybe more than a little. The form of the maiden win isn't working out too great, but this is another I definitely want, along with number 3, Too Legit. I thought this one should move up on turf and should be fine going longer. Thought maybe moved a little too early last time out after breaking poorly. Very live at a big number. 3 and 6 for me to get things going in the stakes ranks. And with that, we'll move on to race number 8. 5:10 Eastern is the time. The class is 3 and up claimers at the $15,000 level. We're on the inner turf going 7.5. I thought number 8, Silver Sheriff, would find himself closer on the stretch out in this spot. And I think he can get the trip on the inner with this configuration. Fits on figures and form, not splitting any atoms here, but I like Silver Sheriff on the way I saw this race shaking out. What do you see happening?
Yeah. This is another hopefully long shot that we can get. The number 3, Tahana. I love going back and watching replays, especially at Woodbine more and more now. And when you go back and watch that replay, you see that the number 2, Robusto, is in that race as well. Robusto goes to the lead, and our number 3, Tahana, duels. And when you just look at the PPs, you see like 1 back, red coated time form, 2 back, 4 back. Oh, well, so probably faded, right? Well, really never had clear running one bit, not even close. And so that jump up in performance and coming over onto the turf and not having any clear pathway, and the perception on the PPs that is saying, yeah, this one's a speed and fade type, I don't think so. Whereas the number 2, Robusto, earned the 84 time form final U.S. figure and was clear running, did tend to the hot pace, but completely collapsed at the very end. So I think that the number 3, Tahana, does offer some value just based on that trip that we can kind of work out. That's not going to be very clear to see in the PPs. The other thing, I think the trip is going to be great. The inner speeds are going to allow this one to suck right onto the rail and sit behind the 1 and the 2, and hopefully just work out a better trip this time around. Has already proven that likes these tighter inner turns and really brought himself into the race. So the number 3, Tahana, I'm with you on the 2 outside horses of the number 8, Silver Sheriff, and number 6, Spring Edition. I couldn't split them. Really, I did put the 8 ahead. Because the last time they squared off, Silver Sheriff was coming off a huge layoff. So we'll give that one a little bit of relief. And the Spring Edition, I think, is another closer. So you've really got a division of 2 classes here, Pete. You got inside speed, drawn 1 through 3, and you got some outside stalkers. So it's going to be fascinating to see who's going to make the move on these turns that are pretty tight and can be sometimes difficult for these closers to catch up.
We'll see if we can get that one. I think we both see it going to a stalker. You with the 3 and me with the 8. Let's move on to race number 9. We've got 2-year-old maidens going 1.70 on the synthetic. These are fillies, 2-year-old fillies here. Drew, who did you come up with?
I went with the number 11, Cigarillo, 10-1 on the morning line. A strange race, right? Going to sprint distance, breaks on top, and then the jockey pulls back and drops way back. Like, odd decision to the sprint race, especially at the class level, right? Maybe if you're going against some world beater type of horses, maybe you think that there's going to be a collapse. But at this level, it just seemed like an odd tactic. It didn't pan out well. But what caught my eye was how the horse naturally pulled into the race. Wasn't asked very much and was making some good ground late. I think the little bit of a stretch out here should help, and the jockey stays aboard. So that one is where I'm going to go, the number 11, Cigarillo. Just be aware that the number 2, Glinda the Witch, who's my second choice, is also trained by the same trainer. And that trainer is 20% going from sprint to turf. So, sprint to route. So you might have some value with the number 11. I think that one had the worst of the trip than the number 2, Glinda the Witch, who happens to be the same trainer and who happened to race against each other in the last event. So that's where I'm going, number 11. How about you? How do you see it?
I like Northern Cross in here, the 5. This is a very big class drop, and I think you're going to see very different things from Northern Cross, going from the open maiden with 126,000 in the pot back into this Ontario sired spot with just 48. And, you have a top you've got the best late sectionals, you got a whole new ball game class-wise, and you got a good rider. I'm very down for Northern Cross, and if you don't like this could be a good spot for a head-to-head. But we can come back and we'll re-talk about this one after we get to our next race, which is our nightcap. Goes as race number 10, 3-and-up allowance, going 1.16 miles on the synthetic this time. And this is a spot where I really like a horse who's a big price on the morning line. If we were playing stable duel and you could essentially lock in the price at the morning line, I would be all about number 4, Crystal Glacier. I don't know if that's realistic in terms of the price we're going to get, but there is class relief here. I felt like there was a trip coming out of the last. Good-looking work tab winning connections is a light on the final figures. So maybe the guess about the prices with these other Cassie runners in here, maybe Crystal Glacier will be this big price, but this was the one that I like best in our nightcap. How did you see it?
Yeah, I saw this as a lot of money getting burned at 2-year-old sales here because, right, we've got the 12 on the outside for $300,000. You got almost $750,000 between. I didn't know Gary Barber and John Oxley got together that often on purchases, so that's an interesting one. I saw it the same way as you. I've got nothing creative in that regard on the top. It should be noted that White's came back in the Lake George and ran a good third against, I think Selflessly is the name of the horse, as well as
it's in tomorrow. Yep.
Melania, something Melania.
Sweet Melania.
Sweet Melania. There you go.
Both running in the Sands Point at Belmont at around the same time as this, actually.
There you go. So you may be able to find some clues there. The one that got me interested just a little bit is the number 10 Cold Water. Did run against Blame Debbie and I'm going to butcher the name of Campbellezia. Campbellezia, who ran yesterday at Keeneland.
Actually, I'm going to take another shot at that. Campbelliza or Campbellisa.
Okay, we'll go with either of those pronunciations. But ran a good race at Keeneland, trying to catch up with a Chad Brown horse that looks to be pretty good. I'm searching for the name. It was a French bred, but I'll find it here in a second. But needless to say, some of these Kentucky down type runners that don't really fire, you can excuse a little bit, and so you're going to get some hidden value with there's no real data points on the Tapeta figures, so it's the first time on Tapeta. Ran behind Campbelleza, the good horse, who ran a good second to a lot. I'm struggling with pronunciations today.
You're having a tough time today, Drew. You wouldn't know you wouldn't know that you're a reader from the way you're struggling with some of these names. You didn't give me enough to even take a shot at it either.
Iliad, I think, French, Eliade.
Eliade, I would say.
Eliade, there you go. So pronunciations aside, we're talking about handicapping, not pronunciations.
Yeah, fortunately, Drew, he's a big winner when it comes to his picks. When it comes to pronunciation, folks, I wouldn't give you a nickel, but that's okay.
Hey, didn't study speech pathology one bit. And I can't even say speech pathology. My goodness, tongue-tied today. Anyways, let's get back to it. The number 10 Cold Water for me. Campbelleza finishes well yesterday in Keeneland. I think maybe gets a lighter spot here with some of these horses, like just trying new things, trying to find the winner's circle and get some payment back for these big price tags. So number 4 on top, but I'll go the number 10 as well, Cold Water as a backup.
Only spot we potentially have for a head-to-head is race number 9. What do you think of my top pick, Northern Cross? Are you against? Is this a use? What do you think?
Yeah, what do you think? I think it all depends on the odds. What is the odds of that horse going to be? I don't think 4-1 stands.
So you think that she'll go shorter than that?
It feels like 5-2.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's really relevant in terms of our head-to-head, though. What do you have? What do you have in mind?
Oh, it is, because I was thinking I would take both the number 11 Cigarillo and 2 Glinda the Witch, but I think those are going to be too short a price and too lopsided. So I'll take 11 versus the number 5 Northern Cross. I just didn't see anything in either race that got me excited.
There's other ways to. You're not being creative enough, and I hate to do this to you. I hate to kick a man when he's down, but I don't know where you're getting Glinda the Witch from Glinda Goodwitch. So I'll go ahead and correct that. I'll give you both. Just give me the. We've done this before, where if I run second, it's a push, and no, you don't even have to give me odds. Just give me second is a push, and you can take the 2 and the 11 against my pick, number 5, Northern Cross, in this fun-looking maiden race that goes as race number 9 at Woodbine. Do we have a deal?
We have a deal. I just had a typo, all right? So, just
okay, you're reading
out
notes. You're not reading PPs. Okay, that's good. Next week, we'll put a pronunciation guide in your notes. Reach out to me beforehand, and I can help you out there. Good stuff, Drew. Hopefully, you'll keep the good momentum rocking and rolling over at inthemoneypodcast.com. Appreciate your time today and all the work you do for us. We will be talking soon, my friend. And with that, that's going to do it. I think we'll wrap up this edition of the show. I want to thank today's guests, Brian Arrigoni, Benny Southstreet, and Drew Coatney. You heard from our partners throughout, but we'll additionally just shout out one more time, as we like to do, our founding partners, our friends at the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, trfinc.org/players to make a donation to that great cause. Also, our friends over at 10 Strike Racing. We always root for the black and purple, and our friends Marshall Graham, Clay Sanders, and the rest of the partners over there. Most of all, though, I want to thank all of you for listening and watching. The great views we've been building for our video content have convinced us to keep this going. We had a limited term engagement to do a video podcast. We've decided we're going to keep it going. That's in part due to the support of fans like you. Reach out with any questions, comments, Twitter, inthemoneypodcast.com. We definitely need to do some more question and answer stuff ahead of the Breeders' Cup. So keep that in mind. Use the hashtag AskITM for all of that stuff. And now that's really going to do it. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our man who pushes all the right buttons is producer Craig, a.k.a. DJ Unstable, Craig Gorbanoff himself. We thank him immensely. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. You know all about him. Chief Creative Officer, Jonathan Kinchin. For more on this week's races, check out Let Loose, where JK and I go over those other stakes races from Belmont, as well as giving a look at Keeneland. Speaking of Keeneland, too, check out the little pod I did with Nick Manella going over the late pick 4 there. And don't forget, Keeneland Fall Challenge. You may still be able to sign up if you go over to the Keeneland website or reach out to Jim Goodman and check that out. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos. Want to remind folks that you can still get, we're going to be shipping it next week, but you can still get your bottle of Whiskey for the Horses, the In the Money Players Podcast whiskey, this bottled in bond single barrel American malt chosen by me from our friends at Albany Distilling Company. Go to trfinc.org/players, make the appropriate donation, and I'll send you this bottle as a gift. I also see in the picture on screen there, I'm wearing my Fresh Degenerate Horse Player t-shirt. Going to be talking soon on one of the shows with Kurt Rossner of Old Smoke Clothing about all the cool stuff they have going on for Breeders' Cup. But we've got a series of shirts, including our co-production, I Won and So Did They shirt with the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. If you want to check out all our stuff from Old Smoke, go to inthemoneypodcast.com/Old Smoke. And remember, proceeds for the I Won and So Did They shirt go to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. Check it out today.